Welcome back to another episode of the Grizz Nation podcast. Today we have my friend Tim for his third time on the podcast. And today we are going to be discussing the working genius, also known as the widget. Something I was only introduced once I started working at Steel Tech. So hope you guys enjoy. Thanks.
I should probably pull up my notes.
You got some notes too?
Yeah.
Good. All I got is what I'm looking at on the computer here. Which I think you're the second person who the pod's a little different.
Yeah.
The first one with Dad, did I introduce him on the spot? The one that just came out a couple days ago or a week ago?
You didn't do an intro on that one.
Okay, yeah, it'll be this Monday. So the one for yours, I've already done it.
Okay.
So it's a little bit different now. The way I'm doing it is we just kind of more naturally jump into it.
Yeah.
So I think it'll just be better for viewing and everything.
Yeah. Record the intro ahead of time. And
Yeah.
Then, yeah. You mentioned, I think Theo Vaughn does it that way.
Yeah.
On his podcast.
Yeah, he does. Yep.
I've listened to a couple of those.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's
Theo does. Rogan's is like that. There's no intro really. He just kind of starts wherever it picks up.
Yeah. Just find a spot to jump in. And,
Yeah, it feels more organic.
yeah.
Yep. Which today, when did you guys first start doing the Working Genius?
We started using Working Genius at work 2021. I'd been there for a little over a year.
Okay.
Something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's whenever it came out. So it's not very old. It's only
Okay,
kind of the last
it's
couple
pretty
of
new.
years. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I figured this is something that's been around a while.
No, it's
Oh.
post-COVID.
Oh, okay. Now, are new hires still doing this?
I think so. Last I heard, they're having them take the assessment whenever they get hired on.
Okay. What was the other one we did?
Probably Myers-Briggs.
That's it. Okay, and that was was that the INFJ thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. We need to do one on that too.
Yeah, I know a lot about that stuff too.
See, I don't know a lot about that one either. We'll have to do one that covers that too. I do know I can't even remember what I am except I'm the same as Zach.
You're the same as Zach. So
Yeah.
you would be an ISTJ. That's what you would be.
Is that what it is?
That's what Zach is.
Okay, then that's what I am. Because I remember when we did it, I took the test with him, and he was like, "Oh, you're the exact same as I am." So I can't remember it, but I'm I remember it's the same as Zach's.
Yeah. With those, the test, I'm not a big fan of the test on those. I feel like it's easier if you kind of learn about it a little bit and
Yeah.
how it functions. And it's easier to kind of figure out what you are from that.
For both of them? Or one particular?
The Working Genius one is pretty good. Their test is pretty good.
It is. You find it to be pretty accurate.
Yeah. But with the Myers-Briggs test stuff, I find it to be kind of hit and miss. It's 80% maybe.
Yeah.
But
What would you put the widget at?
probably 90, 95
Now,
accuracy.
Do we call it the Working Genius or the widget or both?
Either one.
Either one? Yeah. Okay. Now, let's start with what does the widget mean?
Okay. So, this is it's kind of half a productivity tool, half a personality thing.
Yep.
But they came up with it a couple years ago. It was Patrick Lencioni.
And we read a lot of his books.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We like his books at Steel Tech.
Yep.
And his team came up with it. And basically what they were looking at is they were trying to figure out why some jobs are frustrating for some people and other people love it.
Mm-hmm.
And vice versa.
Yep.
And what they figured out is everything that we do, all of the work that we do, falls into these 6 different categories. Basically different stages of the process.
Mm-hmm.
And some people get a lot of joy and energy from some of those steps and a lot of frustration and burnout from other ones.
Yep.
So the 6 steps, going from the start of the process to the end of the process, there's wonder, which is asking questions, trying to find potential in things.
Yep.
So they're responding to their environment. They're looking around and be like, could we do this better? What if we did this? What if we
Right.
tried that?
Now, their definition is the natural gift of pondering the possibility of greater potential and opportunity in given situations.
Yeah. The key to finding out if somebody has wonder, kind of pinpointing it, they'll ask why a lot.
Yeah.
That's
Why are
kind
we
of their
doing it
word.
this way?
Why do we do it that way?
Yeah.
Why do we do this? Why is it this way? You know, those are your wanderers. They
Yeah.
ask the questions. And then there's the inventors is the next step. They come up with answers. They're not always good answers, but they come up with answers.
Right. They're finding something.
They
They're-
want to make a new idea, basically.
Yeah. Their definition is the natural gift of creating original and novel ideas and solutions.
Yeah, they're your idea people.
Yep.
They're always coming up with new ways of doing things, new projects, new
Yep.
whatever. They just want to come up with ideas.
Now, do you find that W and I pair together often? Is that a good pair, a bad pair?
Okay, so, well, I'll explain the pairings real quick for the people at home.
Okay.
So the way that this works is everybody uses all 6 of these letters. 2 of them are your working genius. These are things that fill you up. So you find a lot of satisfaction and joy from doing them. They give you energy.
Yep.
Then the next 2 are your working competencies. You can do them for quite a while, but they slowly drain you of energy. And then the last 2 are your working frustrations. And these are the things that you just hate doing.
Yep.
So the example that they give, they've got a podcast on this where they talk about it too. But the example they always give is if you've got a thermos and you fill it with coffee, it'll keep that heat for ages, right? That's your working genius. Now you take a coffee cup, fill it with coffee, it'll hold the heat for a little while, but eventually it'll get cold.
Right.
Punch a hole in the bottom of that coffee cup, fill it with coffee. That's your working frustration. It's
Right.
actively draining out of it.
Right.
It's like working against the grain.
That makes sense.
So everybody has 2 of each. 2 geniuses, 2 frustrations, 2 pairings. Or 2
And
competencies.
Competencies, okay.
So back to your original question, W and I going together. They do because of the phase of work they're in. Those are the ideation geniuses. They're all about doing things differently, coming up with new ways of doing things. When I first took this, I'm a WI.
Okay.
So I have wonder and invention are both of my geniuses.
Yep.
And I was not convinced that they were different things. I thought they were maybe the same thing.
Yeah.
But I have since met people who have one or the other, but not both.
Okay. And now do you feel like it makes sense for you?
Yes, yeah. It makes sense for me now because the way that I've kind of come to think about it is some people will ask a question, but they don't want to answer it. They don't want to come up with the answer.
Right.
So they'll say, hey, what about this? And you'll be like, well, what about it? And they're like, I don't know. That's why I'm asking you.
Right. Right.
You
That
know,
makes total sense.
Whereas some people don't want to sit down and think through it and ask the questions. They just want to figure out the solution. So they do work together really well because they're both part of the coming up with the new idea.
Yeah.
But you can have one and not have the other.
But if you do have both, it's kind of a like you'll bring up the question, and then
And you'll
start,
already
then
have-
you'll-
yeah.
then you'll start
Yeah.
to come up with an answer. You'll start inventing ways to solve said question.
Yeah, I'll ask a question. Like if we're at work and we're having a meeting, I'll ask a question, and I've already got 3 or 4 ideas of possible solutions to it.
Right.
But those are 2 different steps in the process. Some people might want to ask. Randall at work has wonder, but not invention. So he loves to ask questions, but he doesn't want to come up with the answer.
Right.
He wants you to tell him the answer, right?
Yep.
Whereas Wayne at work has invention, but not wonder. He doesn't want to ask the questions. He just wants to go and do it. He just wants to come up with the solution and start doing it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Especially if you know them, that makes sense.
Yeah. So those 2 are the ideation phase of work. wonder and invention, coming up with new ideas. The next two are the activation stage of work. And there's discernment, which is one way to think about it is almost like a filter that ideas have to go through. They filter out the bad ideas, help refine the good ideas. Usually it's like gut judgments.
Yep.
So these are people that they have really good gut instincts.
Perfect. The way you just said it, their definition, the natural gift of intuitively and instinctively evaluating ideas and situations. You hit the nail on the head.
Yeah. But yeah. So this is one of those too where the guy that made this system or discovered it or however you want to say it, Patrick Lencioni, he's an ID. And he had the same experience that I had where he's like, I don't think these are two different things.
Right.
But he has people on his team that have discernment and not invention. And so for him, he'll come up with an idea and immediately ask, but will it work? Right. Here's an idea. Will it work? Well, what about this and that and that? And he'll filter through his ideas before he shares them.
Right.
But his son works at the company too and helped come up with this system. And he has discernment, but invention is like his lowest.
Yeah, frustration.
Yeah, and so somebody would come up to him with an idea and say, what do you think about this? And he'd be like, that's not the right one. And they would say, well, what's your idea? And he'd be like, I don't have one.
Right. I can just tell
that's
you
not
that's
what
not
I
a
do.
good idea.
I can tell you it's not this, but I can't tell you what it is until you come up with it.
Right.
And then after discernment, there's galvanizing. Galvanizing is basically motivating, inspiring, pushing people.
Yep.
Getting people rallied around what you're doing, getting them all moving in the same direction, that kind of thing.
Yep. There says rallying, inspiring, and organizing others to take action.
Yeah.
Yep.
I've heard it put that they'll start out with inspiration, and if that doesn't work, they'll start pushing you.
Right.
You know,
Right.
if they can't inspire you to move, they'll start pushing you in the direction you need to go.
Right.
So those are activation, and they basically, if you have ideation and you don't have activation, your idea won't ever get implemented. It'll never come to fruition because it doesn't. There's a disconnect there
Yeah.
with the final phase, which is implementation. Most big businesses, they'll talk about ideation and implementation, but they don't talk a lot about activation. And that's why you'll have people like like Apple, where they'll come up with a new idea, and it doesn't make any sense. You know, they'll be like, what if we remove the headphone jack from our phones? You know, and you're like, yeah, you can do that. I don't know why you would.
Right.
You know, or I think in the book they talk about they worked with Nike for a while, and they would throw their ideas over to the factory to get them making it, and they'd be like, this doesn't work. You can't make this. It's because they didn't have discernment and galvanizing. They were just come up with an idea, kick it over there.
Right.
So they didn't have any of the activation. So
To actually get it started, get it
Yeah.
going.
yeah, or to filter out bad ideas. And then, yeah, so the final phase is implementation. And the first one is enablement, which sounds like a bad thing. Because
Right. Enabling someone.
yeah, when we hear enablement, we think of like enabling alcoholism or
Right.
drug abuse.
Right.
But think about how wonderful it would be if you had somebody enabling your dreams.
Exactly.
Or enabling you to be a better father, you know, that kind of stuff.
Right.
Enablement can be a really good thing if you're enabling good things. So the genius of enablement, what they do is they want to help. That's basically the gist of it, is they want to help. They hear what the galvanizer is saying. The galvanizer is pushing, saying, let's go this way. And they're like, all right, what do you need me to do? How can I help you?
Right.
So they just want to assist the people around them, help get it going.
You're literally using the words in their definition. This is providing encouragement and assistance for an idea or project.
Yeah. And then the last step is tenacity. And sorry, that was my phone.
Oh, I was like, did my computer just do that?
There we go. The last step is tenacity. And tenacity is pushing it over the finish line. They don't want to stop until the project is done. So in your implementation phase, this is another one that people look at it and they go, this seems like the same thing. How is this different?
Right.
One of the key differences is that enablement doesn't care about the project. They care about the person. They want to help the person do what they're trying to do. Tenacity doesn't necessarily care about the person and what they're trying to do. They care about finishing the project.
Right. Seeing it through to the end.
Yeah. They're the kind of people with the genius of tenacity love to make a checklist and check everything off of that list.
Oh, gosh.
And they'll add things to the checklist that they've already done so they can check that off too. They'll, like the end of their checklist will say, make a checklist.
Right. Make another one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it says pushing projects or tasks to completion to achieve results.
Yeah.
IMTE.
Those spell out widget.
Right, all
if you
those
go through the
together.
process.
Yeah, if you didn't notice, spell widget. Now, I know IMTE. I wish I could find my papers. I honestly can't remember the order of my other four. But being the TE, like when I took the test and then it was explained to me, I was like, wow, that makes so much sense. Like with the checklist, for instance, I love doing that.
Yeah.
At my old job, that's literally how I ran all of my homes. Every home had a checklist, and I literally would check stuff off when it was completed, or if it wasn't completed, I would adjust the checklist and, go back and monitor, like, why is it not done, or when's it going to be done?
Yeah.
So that is me to a T.
Yeah.
But I wish I could remember the order of the other four.
Do you at least remember what your bottom two are?
I want to say
Frustrations.
wonder and or invention were in the bottom.
Okay.
Because I'm typically not somebody who wonders, why are we doing it this way? The way I look at it is, if someone's doing it that way, and like, let's say they've been doing this for 20 years, they're probably doing it that way because that's the best way, the cheapest way, the most cost-effective way, whatever the reason is, they're doing it for a reason. They've been doing it a long time.
Yeah.
So I typically don't wonder, why is he doing it that way? Well, I'm sure he knows why he's doing it that way. And then invention, I think for me, it's like, unless something needs to be invented, we need an idea, I don't come up with them because I don't spend my time wondering kind of about how do we make this better, or, how could I make this better? To me, it's like, well, that's how they're doing it. They've got the tools or resources they have, and it's probably good enough. Unless something was to come up, then I would start using it. Because that is one thing about this. Everybody uses them in every day or at work, but you just prefer some over the others.
Yeah. So the phrase that they use on their podcast is that every job is a 6-letter job. You have to use all of these at some point or another.
Right.
Knowing, oh, my frustrations are this, doesn't excuse you to not do those things. For example, my frustrations are galvanizing and tenacity. My job at work, I can't just go, well, I don't have tenacity, so it's, of course this stuff didn't get done.
Right.
But I can go, yeah, I got this done. I need to go do something else for a little while because I'm pissed off right now.
Right.
Because I've been doing tenacity for the last 4 hours.
Right.
It's not an excuse to not do the things you don't enjoy, but it is helpful to remind you that this isn't forever.
Right.
You can get this done and then go back to the stuff that you're better at, that you enjoy more.
I typically find when I'm working on something or doing anything, I would rather do the things I don't enjoy first so then I can end on things I enjoy. Like I'd rather just get it out of the way, get it done, and then the second half is more enjoyable.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of how I do it too. I know other people that don't. My wife doesn't do it that way. She likes to work up to the things that she'll do
Right.
some of the stuff she loves first and then work up to the things she's really not looking forward to.
Right.
For me, I'm that way where I'll look at it and be like, I'm going to really hate this. I better do it first.
Yep. Just
You
get
know,
it out of the way.
Get it out of the way because I'm going to enjoy everything else less
Exactly.
if I know that I'm working up towards
Exactly.
doing this.
Yeah, if it's something I dread, but I'm doing something I like at the moment, the whole time I'm like, God, I still gotta do that other thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'd rather just get it done.
Yep.
Yeah, I really wish the order. I want to say wonder and invention were in the bottom, and discernment and galvanizing were in the middle.
Okay.
But I know I'm a TE now. Would it be different if you were a ET?
There is a little bit of a difference. Here's kind of what I found. I found that there's a kind of a dominant one that people tends to gravitate towards, right? For me, it's invention. I gravitate towards invention before wonder. I don't know if that's because it's the top one or if it's because invention is inherently kind of more disruptive. It holds kind of more gravity than wonder. Wonder is very abstract. But it might be. My main understanding is that the majority of the meat with this comes with understanding the two individual letters that you have and the two on the bottom. And then there's some like a little side dish, like the bacon wrapped around the chicken,
Right.
would be the pairing of ET or TE. And then there might be a little bit of like extra bacon grease or something that would be which one's first.
Right. Well, see, at work, we have, I believe, the most we have are TEs.
Yeah.
And everyone is referred to as TE. But I've never met somebody who's taken this test and said, no, I'm an ET.
Yeah.
It's always TE. And now I don't know about the other ones, but as far as those two, because I know we have a lot of them at work, everyone is TE.
Yeah. That is kind of similar to what I was saying a minute ago, too. Because I'm an IW instead of a WI.
Right.
Tenacity kind of holds more weight than enablement. Because I guess I could explain this part of it real quick, too. There's different ways that these express themselves as well. Half of them are responding to something, right? Whereas the other half are disrupting something. So your responsive ones, if you look at the picture, it'll have the 6 gears. The ones on the top are responsive. The ones on the bottom are disruptive. And so what that is talking about, so the wanderer doesn't just wander for wonder's sake. He's responding to his environment. He's looking around and seeing there's potential that's not being met here.
Right.
So he's responding to that by asking questions. The inventor is disrupting his environment by putting new ideas out there, by making new things, changing the direction.
Right.
Yeah. The discerner is responding to the inventor. If the inventor's not doing anything, if the discerner doesn't have anything to respond to, there's nothing to discern, right? The galvanizer is disrupting because he's pushing people. He's trying to create momentum going a certain direction. The enabler is responding to the galvanizer. They're responding to people coming and saying, hey, will you help me, right? The tenacity is disrupting because they're looking at the project being like, this is stalling. We're not moving anymore. Let's go.
Right.
You know,
Let's get it
let's
done.
break this barrier and push through to the end.
Right.
So, from what I've seen, the disruptive geniuses kind of hold more weight because they're more tangible. They're changing their environment. So it wouldn't be surprising to me that people would tend to gravitate towards tenacity over enablement because it's very disruptive.
Is it more common for the disruptors to be first like in your TE, the disruptor would be over the responder one?
I'm not sure. I don't have the statistics. But I think it would be more common for people to jump to tenacity before enablement. They would they would start with their disruptive geniuses first.
Now you can have any combination of these.
Yeah.
Do they have different names when you start doing different combinations? Like could you have invention and tenacity?
Yeah. They do have names. You want me to pull up the list?
Yeah, I'm intrigued because I feel like they go together, like WI go together, GD go together, and then ET go together. I feel like
do.
they pair better than if you started moving them around.
Yeah, they do. Those ones in particular are very interesting because they're the only pairings that are entirely sat within one phase of work. So if you're a DG or a GD, Max, who was on here recently, he's a DG. You're sat entirely within the activation phase of work.
Right.
So you don't have a genius in either of the other two. Or my pairing, WI or IW, is sat entirely within ideation. Yours, ET, is sat entirely within implementation. Those are the only pairings like that.
Right.
There's 15 pairings. Only 3 of them are solely within one phase of work.
Right. Okay. Is that common?
All of the types are relatively similar in commonality. There's no like outliers. They do have the most common types are ET and TE, DT and TD, and then ED and DE. So those 3 pairings are the most common, but it's not by a huge margin.
Right.
It's like a couple percentile.
So the most like far away from each other you could be
It's WT.
WT or IE, but I mean, yeah, even on the scale like WT, because you've got ideology,
Ideation,
and then
implementation.
yeah. So at each end, and on different levels, because one's responsive and one's what was it?
Disruptive.
Disruptive. So I mean, that would be total opposites.
Yeah.
But you could still have that pairing.
Yes. Yeah.
I
would
like
call that the bends. Is what I would call it.
Yeah, I feel like that'd be really tough as your pairing.
Yeah. Justin at work has that.
He's a TW.
Yeah.
So he's wanting to push things through.
He's wanting to push things through.
But he's wondering the whole time why we're doing it this way.
Yeah. They from what I've read and seen and from working with like Justin, and I think Randall's also a WT.
Oh, the T makes sense for him.
They tend to jump back and forth like really quick. So they'll be like, "Well, why are we doing it this way?
I gotta get this
Who
done.
cares? Let me get this done.
Right.
Oh, wait, what if it's wrong? Let's go." You know, they just
Right.
jump back and forth with that.
That makes total sense.
Yeah, I would call that the bends because they're going from way up here in the stratosphere to way down here on the ground.
Right.
You know, like lightning back and forth.
Wow,
So-
that's funny. Yeah, I feel like that one would frustrate yourself. Because you'd like constantly stopping yourself from making progress.
Yeah.
To like stop and hey, why are we doing it this way?
Yeah. WG is another one like that where
They do the same thing.
They kind of which that's also the rarest type.
WG.
Again, not by a whole lot. It's like a couple percentile, but my brother Nathan is a WG. I think part of why I'm not convinced that is actually the rarest type because of if you look at the groups of people that would be taking this assessment, it's not really kind of the environments that you would expect to see a WG in. Because it's like businessmen, factory owners and workers, and, you know, all of these economic things.
Yeah.
WGs are the kinds of people that I would expect to be in, like, philosophy courses or, like, contemplative monks that kind of thing. You know,
Right.
the kind of people that wouldn't be taking this test.
Right.
And I've actually seen a little bit of that. There are several podcasts that I listen to that they would probably never take this test, and they're WGs that are running it.
But they just wouldn't do it.
It's just not the kind of thing that would be on their radar,
Right.
you know, because they're out there like asking questions and like, you know, trying to get people rallied around ideas and stuff. So
What were the stats you were going to bring up?
I was going to bring up, they've got names for the pairings.
Okay, yeah, I want to hear these.
So these
So
are
there's
just
15
for,
different ones.
yeah, because there's 15 combinations of the 6 letters.
Right.
And these are just for the geniuses.
Mm-hmm.
So you could be different from somebody with the same pairing as you because you could have different frustrations, different competencies, that kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah, if you factored all that in, there'd be a ton of pairings.
Yeah. So the first one, WI or IW, this is me, the creative dreamer is what this is called. Because they've always got their head in the clouds.
Right.
These are the kind of people that are always, they have a list of ideas. I have several lists on my phone of ideas that I will probably never do.
Wait,
Because
why
they're-
not bring them up to someone, though?
I do that. I try and do that. I talk to Max about it a lot because he's a very much like a, that
his
one's good. Let's
discernment.
get that going. You know, that kind of thing.
Right.
But it's one of those where it's like I'm always coming up with ideas, and most of them aren't practical or aren't doable, but some of them are,
Right.
and that's why I need discerners around me that can say that one's probably not going to work. You should focus on this one instead.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
Yeah, see, I think that is my frustration because every now and then Thomas will ask me that in our one-on-ones. Like, you know, is there anything you can think of we can do differently or something like that? And I'm like, no, not really.
Yeah.
We're pretty much doing it how we need to do it.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. So the creative dreamer. The next one is WD or DW, is the contemplative counselor. They tend to be very quiet. They give really good advice. They see a lot of depth in things, but you have to ask them for it. They're not going to come out because they're double responsive. They're not going to come up and say, "Hey, you should try this."
Right, they're going to respond versus
Yeah.
take the initiative to say it out loud.
Yeah.
You know?
And they're very nuanced, so they're very reluctant to land on one answer because they're always wondering if there's more potential there.
Right, or if they're wrong.
Yeah,
And that's WD.
that's WD.
Okay.
WG is the philosophical motivator, which is kind of an odd description.
Right.
But yeah, they're very, very deep. They're trying to push people to be better, to think more deeply about things. Very nuanced. But they kind of get the bends a little bit. Like I was talking earlier. Like the example he gives on his podcast, he's talking about one of his friends at school was a WG. And they're the kind of person that would be like, you should go take on that bully. You can beat him. Come on, do it. And then you would step towards the bully and he'd be like, oh, but he might kick your ass. You might die. Be careful.
Right.
And just kind of jumping back and forth with that.
And you said Nate's like that.
Yeah, Nate's a WG.
Okay, and he likes to think, I've heard him talk about philosophy and stuff, so that does seem up his alley.
Yeah. And he doesn't want to keep it to himself. He wants to, get people moving on that,
Yeah,
Get people thinking on the same wavelength.
yeah.
So, WE is the idealistic supporter. My mom is one of these, I'm pretty sure. So, they're also very reserved because they're double responsive again. And they're very, very, very helpful. They just want to help people.
Right.
They can be kind of a doormat because they just want to
Please
help
others.
people realize their potential and stuff.
I feel like
but-
maybe nurses and doctors would kind of have this.
Yeah, nurses would probably be. This would be a good one for a nurse.
I feel like this would be really common for women. Because
Yeah,
they
maybe.
tend to nurture and, they're the more caring ones, like mothers and stuff. This just sounds more motherly.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't seen any of the stats on if any of the types are more common for men versus women.
Right, like if
From
any
what I've
pairing
seen,
is
it's
more
it's kind of
masculine
similar
versus
to the
feminine.
how it's spread is very kind of even. Where it's like there's a little bit of a leaning this way, but it's kind of all the types are generally equally distributed.
Right.
From what I've seen, it's kind of the same way with male versus female. But I haven't done a whole lot of research on that.
Yeah,
So-
yeah, because I would think there would be more common pairings with men, and
Yeah.
women.
I will say, I have thought a little bit about this. Of all of the geniuses, a lot of them seem kind of neutral, like kind of gender neutral. But when you get to the implementation, where it's a very like physical thing, like very observable thing, it seems like it kind of skews more towards that, where enablement seems more like a feminine kind of. It's got feminine energy, whereas tenacity would have masculine energy. And that's not. I don't say that to put down any like men that are
Right.
E's and not T's.
Right.
I'm not a T. That's my very lowest
A frustration.
frustration. Or to put down any women that have tenacity and not enablement.
Right.
My wife is that way. She has
Right.
tenacity and not enablement. But I will say, like, if you had to assign it, that's kind of where I would put it.
Yeah,
And yeah, it's because enablement is very nurturing and very like they just want to come alongside and help. So, but yeah, WE. Yeah, I don't know a whole lot of WEs, but the ones that I do, very very helpful.
right. Do we have any at work?
I'm not sure. I think Alvaro might be a WE or a WI.
Do you know what JoJo is?
No,
I know he's got T. I want to say he's TE.
he's probably TE.
It seems like everyone on that side of the shop is TE.
Most of the people at the shop are TE or
Right.
ET or some combination with tenacity.
Right.
So-
Yeah. A lot of tenacity in the shop.
Yeah, which makes sense because we're very much on the implementation side of the company.
Right.
It's very much we need this done by this time in this way, and so that's the kind of job that TEs would gravitate towards.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. And then the WT, we were talking about this a minute ago, are the careful implementers. So you can even kind of see that tension there,
Right.
where they're like, they want to rush and get it done, but they want to kind of tiptoe into it and then be able to step back if they need to and wonder some more and
Right.
kind of jumping back and forth with
Which,
that.
yeah, it just seems like it could be a fight the whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one's interesting. Now, you said Randall and Justin are WT.
Yeah. I know Justin is. I think Randall is, but I
Randall's
don't
got to
remember.
be.
I'm
gotta
pretty
be
sure he
WT.
is. So, yeah. And then that's all the W's. So, into the inventors, the ID is the discriminating ideator. Discriminating ideator. So, kind of where their strength lies is that their first draft on an idea is usually pretty good because they've thought of a lot of the initial problems.
Right.
That being said, no inventor can fully discern their own ideas. There will always be kind of blind spots.
Right. That makes total sense. So they're good at coming up with an idea, typically their first idea being pretty good, but they have a
Yeah.
problem seeing the faults in it because it's their own idea.
Yeah,
It's
and
kind of hard to
they're
take a step back from it.
they're hard to argue with as well because the first couple things you think of, they've already thought of.
Right. They're like, no, I already
And
thought
so
of
that
that. You're
yeah,
wrong.
you'll go through 2 or 3 and they'll be like, "No, see, I've already thought of everything.
Right.
We should go with this."
Right.
But you gotta keep pushing past that. But yeah, their first go is usually pretty good, and they jump back and forth between those two really quickly because they're right next to each other.
Yeah.
And that ID loop of here's an idea, well, it's not quite right. Well, here's a different one. That's a little better. Try again. They're very good at that section of the work process.
They're kind of like keeping themselves in check.
Yeah.
Like, I've got this idea, but oh no, that's bad. And
Yeah.
being able to decipher whether it's a good or bad idea.
Yeah. Whereas my ideas might be cool, they'll be completely impractical and impossible to do.
Right.
But their ideas are usually pretty good in the way of like that you could get people moving on this, and it would eventually get there.
Yeah, more realistic.
Yeah. Not as realistic as some of the ones later down. Like IT is very good at practical ideas, but ID is very good at cutting the bad ideas before they even open their mouth.
Right.
So
Makes sense.
IG, this one is maybe the easiest type to spot, other than like an ET. ETs are pretty easy because it's a very observable thing. They're jumping in and getting it done.
Right.
IGs are also very easy to spot because they're double disruptive.
Right.
And so these are the kinds of people that will always be coming to you with a new idea, and you'll think that they've already started on it.
Right.
You know, and they probably have. So the WI has a bunch of ideas that they have written down that they'll never get started on. The IG has a bunch of ideas that they've started on that they'll never finish. You know,
Right,
they've already got going. And
Do they even take that to a discerner? Or do they just jump right to it?
oftentimes they'll just jump over the discernment. So,
Right.
and just jump right into galvanizing people and be like, I come up with this new game. We're all going to do it. It's amazing. Come on, let's get going. You know,
Right.
like it's pretty easy to spot an IG. I've got a couple friends that are IGs, and they're exactly like that, where they'll just jump right in with, I came up with this idea. Let's start on it right now.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of thing.
What is Thomas? Because galvanizing is one of his, I believe.
I know galvanizing is one of his. I don't remember what his other is. I want to say tenacity. It's not tenacity.
Tenacity's in his bottom.
Is it?
He hates seeing stuff through to the end.
Okay. Well, I know invention is his other bottom.
Okay. IT would be his bottom.
He hates. He'll come up with an idea with me, and he'll be like, "It's probably terrible, but this is all I got," you know. But I don't know what his other is. He's definitely galvanizing.
Yeah, he's definitely galvanizing. It's either discernment or enablement.
Yeah.
And I
think it's probably discernment.
I was going to say enablement.
We'll just have to ask him next time. Yeah. Okay, where was I?
Let's see. I think we did.
We did IG.
IG, so IE.
Oh, IG is the.
Or did we just do ID?
IG is the evangelizing ideator or inventor. Yeah, the evangelizing inventor, not the inventive evangelizer. They're not inventing new ways to evangelize.
Oh,
They're
okay.
evangelizing their ideas.
Right, okay.
IE is the adaptable designer. This one is so enablement is my top competency, but this is still such a foreign concept to me because these guys, they'll throw out an idea, and if you're like, that one doesn't work for me, they'll be like, oh yeah, no problem, here's another one, and they'll just throw that idea away.
Right, just totally forget about it.
They're not married to their ideas at all. They just want to help you, and they'll just keep throwing out ideas until you find one that you want. Right? That is crazy to me.
So you're married to them. You'll want to circle back to them.
I am too committed to my ideas. I'm the other way around.
Right.
They're too quick to throw their ideas away if somebody doesn't like it. Mm-hmm. I'm too quick to be like, "Oh, you didn't like my idea? Let's fight." You know, I'll go to bat for this. Mm-hmm. You know, and they're like, "But it's it doesn't work. You know, you could never make this work." But yeah, the IE, the adaptive or adaptable designer, they're very much like that. They're not married to any of their ideas, even when they should be. They'll just.
So it can be a negative.
It can be.
Like they could have a really good idea.
Yeah, and they'll just.
Someone who, just maybe isn't informed or has maybe discernment is their frustration, and they tell them no, and they're just like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Toss that idea to the side.
Yeah, and come up with another one.
Right. When really you had a cure for cancer and you just threw it away.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
And do we have any IEs?
I'm not sure. I don't think I've met any IEs. I know they're out there, but I don't know any of them.
Right.
So-
I wish we knew everyone's at work. I
That
know
would
it's
be
it's
nice.
always been brought up occasionally, but it would be nice to somehow like see every. Well, I think Thomas has it in his office.
Yeah, there is like a team map thing that you can print out where it shows everybody's.
At work?
I don't know if we have it printed out at work, but when you take the assessment with the team, which we've done, you can just hit print this out and it'll print it out for you.
Oh, okay.
And it's got each of the ones, and it'll have everybody's name in green if it's their genius, and
Yeah.
red if it's their frustration. So our tenacity column would be like that long, and then
Tons of
you would
green.
get over to like discernment, and it'd be like 4 people,
Right.
you know. But yeah, I would like to look at that eventually. I've been thinking about that.
Yeah, that'd
it'd be
be
very
interesting.
helpful to have at work.
Yeah.
Because I know knowing the geniuses of the people that I'm working close with helps me work with them better.
Right, exactly. Especially like if you're lacking in something, you would know who could I ask, who would be the best to ask for help.
Yeah.
You know, like if I'm trying to think of an example, like, you know, if I needed to replace a liner in a welder, I wouldn't go ask
Me. You wouldn't go ask me
right,
to do that.
Tim or Randall or Diane. You know, I wouldn't go ask one of those people. Maybe I would know. Oh, I should probably go ask Wayne.
Yeah.
So yeah, that would definitely be helpful.
It's helpful too in knowing how to communicate with people. And we'll touch on this a little bit later when we're done with the pairings. But
Okay.
a good example of it is, so Ampelio, you've mentioned him on the podcast before. Shout out Ampelio. He is running the yard now, which is what I used to do.
Yeah.
Whenever Thomas puts one of us in a new position, he'll walk us through it and cast the vision, right? And be like, this is what we want you to do here. Well, I was talking to Ampelio the other day, and Thomas cast almost opposite visions for us based on our working genius.
Really?
And it was perfect. Yeah. So for me, I'm a WI. Tenacity is my very lowest. So he went out there with me, and he's like, okay, here's what we need this to be. We need trucks are never waiting on us to unload them. Machines are never waiting for material. Everything can be found. I don't care how you do it. Make your own systems, make the systems better, rearrange the entire yard if you need to. Just make sure that these 3 things get done.
Right.
With Ampelio is an ET. He walked him out there and he said, okay, I want you to do these things in this way, in this time frame. And Ampelio was like, yes,
Right.
I would love that. I will do that.
Right.
Whereas if he had walked me out there and said, I need you to do these things in this specific way, in this specific time frame, following this specific method, I would be like, oh my gosh.
Right. It gives you
You
no
know?
ability to wander and invent your own
There's
way.
there's no wiggle room for invention, so I would just be like, oh, this is miserable.
Right.
You know. Whereas with Ampelio, if he went out and told him, I don't care how you do it, just get these 3 things done. Rearrange the whole yard, put stuff where you need it to be, make it organized how you want it. Ampelio would be like, oh, I
Right.
hate this.
Right.
You know.
Just tell me how to do it.
Just tell me what you want me to do, and I'll go
Right.
do it.
I relate
you know.
to that. Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's the importance of knowing the people around you, what they work with. So like if I'm working with Ampelio, I'll give him a clear, I want this done in this way in this time. Can you do that for me? Can you help me with this? And he'll be like, yes, absolutely.
Right.
Whereas if I'm working with Alvaro, who is like me, he's got wonder and no tenacity. I'll be like, I don't care how you do it. Just do this thing. I
Right.
need this done. I don't care how you do it.
Right.
You know, as long as you uphold our values, go with God. You know,
Right. It allows
and he'll
their
be like,
wonder and invention
yes.
to come out. Yeah.
yes,
and
I love that.
I would assume they're able to do it more efficiently once they cycle through all the wonder and inventions on how to do it, and it's probably more efficient for them. It might
Yeah.
not be for someone else, But for them, it's like, this is the most easy and efficient way.
Yeah.
Versus if you just tell me how to do it your way, it might not stick with them. That's how I feel like it'd be. It wouldn't stick. That idea wouldn't stick with them as well. And they couldn't really commit to it because they're like, well, this isn't how I would do it.
Yeah. Yep, that's exactly right.
And that was IT?
I don't remember.
That was IT.
What were we talking? I think that was IE that we were
Oh, was it
talking about.
IE?
Yes, IT is next.
Oh, okay.
This is what Wayne is at work.
Okay. Makes total sense again.
Yeah, IT is the methodical architect. So they love coming up with new ideas, and they love getting them done. So if you've got WI has a list of ideas that they'll probably never get to, or a list of ideas that you've never heard of, that's another way of saying it. IG has a list of ideas, and you've heard of all of them because they always talk about them. IT has a list of ideas that are done.
They're already done.
They're already done.
Right.
Yeah. And where this kind of plays in with other types is that since they don't use discernment, they might, if it's a competency, it's a lot of trial by error. They'll make something, and then they'll look back and be like, that didn't work quite how I wanted it to. Next time I'll do it this way.
I have a great example of this. So on the beam welder, sometimes the webs are just so wide, you can't really reach the flange in the back. And so I believe well before I got there, Wayne had made these hooks that had a handle on them, one handle, and you were able to throw it back there, reach the material, and then pull it to you.
Yeah.
Mike was using it. I had been there like weeks, 3 or 4 weeks, and I was close to Mike because I worked with him every day, so I was closest with him at the time. And it was it was during OFA, so it was really just Mike and I. Shane was down at the other end of the table. And so Mike and I are working, and we had some flange we had to pull, so he threw that hook up there, went to pull, and instead of kind of like keeping a foot back to brace himself, he gave it everything he had with both feet in front of him, and he slipped off and like hit his head on the table. It freaked me out because I thought he knocked himself out. I still think he did, but he said he was all right, but it was kind of a scary deal.
Yeah.
And once that happened, we got to talking about those hooks. And I was like, well, for one, the hook part is too small. It doesn't really allow you to get on the backside of that material. It's like barely lapping it. And two, with just one handle, you can't get a whole lot of oomph like you could with two. So we went to Wayne, and we just kind of told him what we didn't like about that one and what we wanted in a different one. Explained we wanted a bigger hook, 2 handles, make it even longer so it's easier to get. And we're like, just whenever you have time. And like the next day, I think he worked a Friday, we weren't there or something. And then like Monday we came in and he had 2 new ones. And they were better than what we had imagined. He took that idea and ran with it and made them, and boom, they were there Monday.
Yeah.
And we've been using them ever since. Actually, we were talking last week, and we were like, we should have Wayne make 2 more of these. Because now there's like not enough of them. We like them so much, we only have 2 on an 80-foot table. So it's like, we want 2 more of these things.
Yeah.
And that was all Wayne.
And if anyone from OSHA is watching, this was in Minecraft.
Yeah, this wasn't real. This wasn't real life.
This was in we were on our Minecraft server.
Yeah, this is all like hypothetical game stuff.
Yeah.
We had hard hats on.
Yeah.
Everything. Safety harnesses.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, that definitely made me think of Wayne.
Yeah, this is another interesting one to me because we'll talk about this a little bit in a minute too. Inventors really, really want freedom. They hate being constrained. But people with tenacity really, really want clarity.
Yep.
They want you to specify exactly how you want it done. So having both of those seems like it would, cause some kind of turmoil.
Yeah.
And I've talked to Wayne about this a little bit, but he says, here's what I want. I want you to tell me exactly what you want done by when, and then let me do it my way.
Right. That's how I would envision that. Yeah. Tell me when and how you want it, or not how, but when. Yeah. And I'll get it done.
Yeah. Tell me what and when, and then give me the freedom to do it the way that I think will be best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I think is a pretty good pairing, really, when you put it that way.
Yeah, I would say if you were in like a one-on-one sniper battle, I think Max first came up with this analogy. If you were in a one-on-one sniper battle, this would be the worst pairing to go up against because,
Right.
yeah, they're gonna find a creative way to absolutely destroy you.
Right.
You know,
Yeah, they're going to have like the best
and they're not gonna
camouflage
stop
and-
until you're done for.
Right. That makes me, you know, you saying that, like bringing up military type stuff, I wonder if a lot of military people are the same. Or like first responders, stuff like that, like different professions. I wonder if a lot of them tend to have the same pairings. Medical fields.
Yeah. Well, I will say you can approach any job with any pairing.
Right. You almost have to.
My job at SealTech is to finalize our trailers.
Mm-hmm.
I have the lowest tenacity. So it's really frustrating for me to finish things.
Right.
That's my entire job.
It's to finish stuff.
It's finish stuff.
Right.
But I find different ways and better ways of doing it
Mm-hmm.
because I'm tapping into my wonder and invention
Yeah.
instead of relying on my tenacity.
Right.
So you can do any job with any pairing. There are some that are a more natural fit.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, a drill sergeant would probably benefit from being like a GT.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because they're going to go in there, they're going to get stuff done, they're going to push people to the finish line, you know, and they're going to be down there in the trenches with them, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, whereas a drill sergeant might not. It would be very difficult to do that if you were like a WE. You know.
Right. I was questioning why are we doing it this way, and
Yeah,
kinda-
and just trying to help people, and
Right.
we're like, they don't need you to help people. They need you to go in there and kick their butt.
Right,
You know,
make 'em
that's
soldiers.
what they need.
right. Yeah, I would like to see a stat on that, different professions and what's like the most common.
Yeah. Okay. DG is the next one. So this is Max, the intuitive activator. They're the ones that's solely in the activation phase. So they're very much, you come to them with your ideation and they fine tune it, they gut check it, and then they get people moving on it. So they, one of the guys that came up with this is a DG, and they affectionately call him the pushy douchebag. he said since then, he's like, I've talked to other DGs and nobody calls them that, so it must just be me.
Must
But
be me.
yeah, they're very much like let's figure out what we're doing and get people going on it. You know,
Kind of like all business,
yeah,
straight to business.
yeah. Let's filter through these ideas, find the right one. Once we found it, we're not waiting anymore. We're going.
Right.
You know, that kind of thing. They jump really quickly into things.
Which Max is definitely a go-getter.
Yeah.
Like, it makes sense because he's
Yeah.
out there first thing and ready to go and getting everybody hyped up and
Yeah. I'm just thinking about this. I've worked closely with Max pretty much since I started at SealTech. I've known him for like 6 or 7 years now, since he moved up here. But I'm solely in the ideation phase. He's solely in the activation phase.
yeah.
Right? So my ideas go straight to him. So I can do these two, and then he does these two.
Right.
I do my one-on-ones with him, and I think that's a lot of what those go like.
Right.
Where I'll be like, here's what I'm thinking about. And he'll be like, I'm not sure about that one. You know? Or I'll be like, well, this is kind of the idea I'm working with. And he's like, that's it. Go with that one. What do I need to do to get you going on that one?
Right.
You know?
That makes total sense. Especially when you know these people
Yeah.
and you hear their pairings, it's like, oh wow, I can definitely see that.
Yeah. And I know it's not super helpful to the people at home to say, you know, Jim Bob is, you know, EW, you know, or whatever. But it's helpful to you and it's helpful to me.
Right.
And the people at home can probably think of people that they know that this makes sense for.
Right.
And it'll help them kind of relate to it.
Yeah. Yeah, especially in work, it's definitely helpful.
Yeah. The next one is the DE, which is the one of the most common types. This is the insightful collaborator. So they're very much, you come to them and you're like, hey, can you help me with this? And they'll be like, absolutely. But are you sure that's the right thing you want to do? Mm-hmm. You know, so they'll start giving you advice. They love to give advice, DEs. But they want to help you, but they don't just jump in and do it. Mm-hmm. They help you figure out that that's actually what you need first.
Right.
Which is a really good combo.
Using their discernment. They're like, I'll help, but we need to make sure this is the correct option.
Yeah. But they're double responsive, which means they can kind of be a doormat as well.
Right.
Similar to those previous types. Yeah. They're not going to come to you with it. They want you to come to them.
Right.
You know, if you come to them and ask them for it, they will be more than happy to, you know, provide you with help, provide you with advice. But they don't want to push it on you.
Right. That makes sense. Do we have any DEs?
I think so. I think several people in the office are DEs.
In the office?
Yeah. I think Tracy at the office is I think she's a DE. She might be a DT. But I think we have several people at the office that are Ds. I don't know if we have any at the shop.
Yeah. How do you know what everyone is? Just talking to people over the years?
Yeah.
See, I forget.
And I've thought enough about this and learned enough about this that I can kind of start to place people from just conversations with them.
Right.
You know? So yeah, I'll talk to people at the office and I'll be like, this person seems like they're always coming up with new ideas. They're probably an inventor. Or this person doesn't really want to step out of their comfort zone. They kind of want people to talk to them about it. Mm-hmm. They're probably responsive. You know, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You get a feel for it as you go along, you know?
The more you know about it, yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. The DT. This is my wife. My wife is a DT.
Okay.
This is the judicious accomplisher. So, they've got that checklist, things that they want to do. Mm-hmm. And they discern everything on that checklist to make sure they're doing what they actually need to do.
Yep.
So they're not going to waste time, you know, beating around the bush. They're going to be like, this is what needs done. I'm going to go do it. Mm-hmm. So, they're the judicious accomplisher. But you can talk to almost any DT, and they'll say that they can also be the judgmental accomplisher, because they'll be looking around and be like, if you're not working on this, like, man, what's wrong with you? You know, let's get going.
Right.
We got to finish this.
I feel like that would be a pretty common one too.
It is. Mm-hmm. Discernment, enablement, and tenacity are the three most common geniuses. Okay. And the combinations of those are the most common.
That would make total sense. Because for tenacity, I feel like sometimes when you're just focused on getting something done, sometimes it's like, I just got to go with what my gut says. I don't want to waste time or can't waste time gathering other ideas and getting other people involved. It's like, I'll just do it. And you got to make that choice yourself, which takes discernment.
Yeah. I think a key phrase for the DT would be, well, I wouldn't have done it that way. You know?
Right.
I'm
That's
thinking
not how I would have done it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I'm thinking of, and this is another good example of discernment versus enablement. Somebody that would have, or not discernment, tenacity versus enablement. Somebody that has tenacity but isn't necessarily enablement. They just want to get the job done. They don't care about how you want to do it. Mm-hmm. They just want to do it. So an example would be, we helped my mom redecorate and repaint a room recently. And she was wanting to do, it's her office. She was wanting to paint the walls this blue, like this sea blue, and put like postcards around the rim. And Rachel was like, I love this. I love doing this. I love figuring out which ones go next to each other. I love painting the wall, the right way. And then it was like a 3-day thing. We were working on it just a couple hours a day.
Right.
And there was one day where she had to work while they were working on it. And I went and ate lunch with her that day. And she's like, this is driving me crazy. Because I know that they're still doing it. And it's not going to be the way I would do it,
Right.
And she's like, I know that's terrible. Because it's not my house. It's not my room. I don't have to ever look at it again.
Right.
But my gut tells me what needs to go where, and I just want to do that.
I can also relate to that. I want to say that's DT, right?
That's DT.
Yeah, I think discernment is in my competency because I have things like that. I'm trying to. I can think of one for sure. I'm trying to think if there's something else, but when it comes to like it has to be done my way.
Mm-hmm.
I look at my yard like that.
Yeah.
Like when my wife mows, who does great, like she's great with the mower. I'm always looking at it like, she should have went a little slower, or stuff like that, or like the dishes. I am the only one allowed at my house to do the dishes because like she'll load the dishwasher and I'll look at it and I'm thinking, why did you load the dishwasher like that? That's the dumbest way you could have loaded these dishes. So like there's been times I'll pull them all out and I'll reload that thing because I'm just like, this is how it's got to be loaded.
Yeah.
It's real weird, but I have a couple things like that.
Rachel and I have had both of these exact conversations, but I was on the other side of it.
Right.
Where she would come home from work and be like, why would you wash the underwear with the towels, or,
Right.
something like that, and then I'm like, who cares?
Right.
It's all clean.
They're all clean.
And she's like, no, you're doing it wrong.
I can relate to this one. That's so funny.
Yeah, the judicious accomplisher.
Love you, babe.
Love you, Rachel.
Yeah, but we better throw that in there.
Yeah, we better be more careful.
Yeah, this is public.
Yeah.
If I go missing, it was Maddie.
The next one is the GE, which is the enthusiastic encourager, which sounds like double of the same word.
Right, and I feel like those two are so close to each other.
Mm-hmm. Well, they are because if you look at the what is the word I am looking for?
I'm thinking of like logo, damn near, or, like the what the picture looks like.
Yeah. The process
Okay.
of work, because it's not just these happen individually. It starts with wonder and then goes to invention and then discernment and then galvanizing and then enablement. So these two are right next to each other.
Yeah.
And they go together. My little brother Andrew is a GE, and this is what these people are like. You say, hey, I'm thinking about doing this, and they're like, yes, you should do that. What do you need? If you're like, I think it was one of the guys on the Working Genius podcast said, if I go to my friend who's a GE and I say, I'm thinking about becoming a New Zealand fisherman, sailing around New Zealand and fishing. Next thing I know, I've got a boat and a fishing rod, and they're, waving as I sail off,
Right.
and I'm like, they're not discerning your ideas. They're pushing you into it and helping you get there, you know.
With no discernment, nothing.
Yeah. They will encourage and support you in whatever it is you're doing.
No matter what.
Whether or not that's a good thing or not.
Right, that can be a little dangerous.
Yeah. But they're awesome. They're so chipper and so
Energetic.
and so helpful. I
Yeah.
think were you saying that Thomas is a GE?
I think he might be a GE.
I think he might be too. He's that or a GD.
Right,
but-
he's one of those combinations.
Thinking about it now, he reminds me a lot of my brother in that way, where he's very much like, "That's what you want to do? Let's go, let's do it."
Yeah.
That
Very
kind of thing.
energetic.
Yeah,
I wonder if this combination is really common with people with ADD or ADHD.
maybe. Yeah,
Because they're just like bouncing off the walls with shit.
yeah.
All meant in love.
So then we've got the GT, which is the assertive driver, or You could also call them the butt kicker, and they would probably love that.
Right.
You call them the butt kicker.
Be like,
I
hell
think
yeah.
this is probably a really common one in the military, like we were talking earlier, or in construction. I know a
Yeah.
lot of people that will talk about their bosses who will come along and be like, "Come on, let's go, let's do it," you know, and then they'll jump in there and start doing it with you.
Right.
You know, they're pushing everyone in the same direction, and they're not just let's all go do this. They're also, I'm going to jump in there and do it with you. You know, they're down in the trenches with the men,
Yeah.
pushing to the finish line, and keeping everybody around them motivated.
Right. And you think that is a common one?
I think it's a common one in a lot of in like the military is probably really common, and in construction and that kind of thing. You know.
Yeah.
I think it's probably a common one for coaches as well.
Seeing all these things, it just sounds more masculine. So like I circle back to like, are more of these combinations masculine or feminine?
Yeah.
It seems like this would be a more masculine type pairing.
Yeah. Probably. Again, I don't have the statistics on it. I don't know
Right.
if it is or not.
I wonder if
but-
someone's done that. Just that intrigues me.
Yeah. I do know that it's kind of like any other personality thing where it could be, you could be either one,
Right.
you know, but it might be where it does lean more masculine or more feminine. So I hesitate to make those distinctions usually because in almost all of the personality type things that I've taken, I'll be one of the ones that is typically more feminine.
Right.
So, like with Myers-Briggs, I'm an INFJ. About 2/3 of INFJs are women.
Right.
You know. So I hesitate to say it one way or the other.
Yeah.
You know.
Uh-huh.
Maybe that's a selfish thing, but
That's funny. What does that leave us with? ET?
we're down to the very last one.
This is
ET,
what I am.
the loyal finisher.
Loyal finisher.
Loyal finisher. This is most of the people at the shop. They're, except, I think we do know a GT, actually. I think Brandon, he's been on here a couple times. I think he's a GT.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I could see him getting people fired up and stuff.
Yeah, because he's very much a galvanizer in the way that he talks. He's always trying to get people moving on stuff. And
Right.
I think Moses might be a GT as well, or a WG. I don't.
I think he
remember
was
for sure.
WG.
Yeah,
Because I think one of his was Wonder.
I think he's WG then.
That sounds right. T was probably somewhere in the middle, knowing him, but I think Wonder was one of his, what's it called?
Geniuses.
Geniuses, yeah. Yeah, the whole thing, working genius. Yeah, I think that was one of his geniuses.
Yeah. And then, yeah, Brandon's a GT, and then most of the people at shop are ETs,
Right.
which is good because that's the kind of work that we mostly do there. The way that it works too is that the further you go down the line, the longer it takes to finish that thing, right? Wonder can take 30 seconds. You can take one question, and now you're done wondering for this project. You know,
Right.
you could ask, why do we do it this way? And then that's all the wonder you need. And the inventor just runs off with it.
Right.
Invention and discernment can take a little bit of time to get through there. And galvanizing can take a little bit of time. But when you get down to enablement and tenacity, the actual, like, pushing it over the finish line, that takes the most time.
Right, because it kind of starts at the beginning. Like,
Yeah.
for my tenacity, so I've been fitting a lot, fitting and beam welder, and they kind of go hand in hand when I look at the job, and it's like, oh, this is a 100,000-pound job. It's going to take all week to do, and it's Monday,
Yeah.
and I just look at the stacks of paper, and I'm like, ugh, I cannot wait to grab the last paper. That's when I get
Yeah.
98% of my satisfaction when I'm like fitting is grabbing that last paper. And I'm like, this is it. This is the last beam for that job.
Yeah.
And then you got to start all over again. And you're like,
Yeah.
shit. We have a brand new job, big stack of papers.
Yeah. For me, it's the other way. It's the other way around. I look at that huge stack of paper. I'm like, I think I'm gonna go do something else for a little bit.
Right.
You know, I'll come back to this later.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah,
See, my
that's
goal
a very
is like
tenacity thing.
I'll see that stack and I'm thinking I just want to knock it out as quick as possible. Because then when I get to the last few, I'm over there fitting. I'm like, oh, I got 5 papers left, 3 papers left, and I'm like, it's the last beam. That's where a lot of my satisfaction comes from.
Yeah. That's where a lot of my frustration comes from. So, and this is why I love working with ETs specifically, because they are fantastic. You are fantastic at the very thing that I hate doing.
Right.
Which means I can rely on you to do it instead.
Yeah,
because I know you love doing that.
Exactly. And if it's a wonder, you're WI, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if it's something that was thrust on me where I got to really tap into the WI, it's like, oh, I should just go get Tim.
Yeah.
And see what he thinks. Let him ponder on it.
Yeah. And I think that's where a lot of the beauty of this model, this system, whatever you want to call it, comes from, is that it's a gift. If I work very closely with Ampelio. So if I go to him and I say, hey, I've got this huge list of things that needs done. I can't do all of these. Do you want to take a couple of these? He's like, yes. Yes, please. I love that. Give me some more of those.
It just came to my mind, you saying this. When I radio you, because here lately I've been prepping a lot. So, like, I prep the beams for the fitter. Now, we kind of go back and forth, but when I got to go back and forth from the beam welder, it just makes sense to have me prepping. So I've been prepping a lot, which I enjoy doing both. But as the prepper, you go and get the carts.
Yeah.
And so we'll get down to 1 or 2 carts or no carts. I try and do something before I see 0 carts. But when I radio you and I'm like, hey, could we get a couple of those carts outside, like, freed up? Is that more of a frustration for you?
So for me, I would look at that as enablement, which is my top competency. I love enablement. It's not the same as wonder and invention. Wonder and invention happen almost naturally for me. I'm almost never not wondering or inventing. Enablement takes effort. I have to put out effort to do it, but I still love doing it. So for me, if it's something like, hey, could you help me with this? We're running low on carts. Could you free up some carts? That would be enablement.
Right.
If you said, hey, here's this huge stack of things that need done by this time, that would be tenacity.
Right.
And I would look at that and be like, oh, okay, fine.
Right. Now,
that's where the difference would be for me.
I feel like what I would try to do to make my frustrations more enjoyable would be to use my geniuses kind of against them. So if you were to give me, I need to use my wonder and invention on something, like I need to think about why we're using these carts and invent a better cart.
Yeah.
It would be like, okay, like that's not really something I would want to focus on.
Yeah.
But I would use my tenacity to think, okay, how can we do this and make it more of a project so I get satisfaction when it's done. Always look at something as whatever you're doing, there's a finish line, and whatever that is done, you've accomplished something.
Yeah.
You feel your tenacity being fulfilled even though you were using wonder and invention.
Yeah.
Do you try and do that with things?
Absolutely. And I think I did this kind of naturally before understanding this system, which is part of the credit to the system's effectiveness and truthfulness is that almost everybody that I've talked to, they were doing this before they knew what it was. So I started out in the paint booth. The paint booth is an ET job.
Right.
Right.
Poor Alvaro.
Poor Alvaro.
He's WI in there.
I pity him, but he's only had 1 summer in there, so I don't pity him that much.
Right.
Love you, Alvaro.
1 summer's not enough.
Yeah. I did 2 summers in there, and I was approaching a 3rd when they hired the next painter. But so the first year that I spent there, and when I was interviewing for the position, that this is kind of how they phrased it to me. this is the problem with this company, this area. It's always slowing everyone down. Our paint jobs aren't very good. We've had 6 painters in the last 2 years, and they've all quit or been fired or failed a drug test and then denied it and then failed a second one after that, you know, in Minecraft. But yeah, they were like, this is the problem area. We need somebody to come in there and fix it. And they were talking this language, and I was like, ooh, baby. I give me a crack at that. I know it's going to be hard, but I can do it. I can fix this. And so I spent that first year doing stuff like I came in and there was stuff all against the walls. Like we stored all of our paint inside. And I was looking at it, I'm like, if we took all of this stuff out, we could fit 3 times so many beams in here. So we just took it all out, sorted through it.
It used to have stuff in the paint booth?
All of our paint pallets were lined up against the walls. There was like a I-beam propped up in this corner. There was stuff all against this wall.
Oh my gosh.
You could fit 2 or 3 small pieces of hot roll or like 1 build-up in the paint booth before.
That was it.
Yeah. The most beams I fit in the paint booth in one time is like 27 beams.
Once everything was moved out. Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of those were shorter. But some of them were not very short. There was like several columns and stuff. You can fit like 3 rafters in there now, or 9 columns, or 15 ECs, you know.
Right.
Whereas before it was like 3 ECs at best, you know, and one rafter. Because there was so
I've
much
never
junk
seen it
on the
that
wall.
way, so I couldn't even imagine that.
Yeah, so I came in and I was like, okay, all this stuff needs somewhere else to go. It either got thrown away or moved somewhere else. And then I was like, okay, what if we, you know, set up a pump going the other direction so that, you know, these long rafters where you can't quite reach the end of it, you can use the other gun, you know, going the other way. Now, what if we had one gun running red and one running gray at all times? Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we used to, and then our pumps broke. But then I was like, well, okay, well, what if we just stored all the gray paint in this pump room that's on the outside and just made that the gray gun all the time, running this way, the red gun's running that way, stuff like that. What if we, you know, took out these, there used to be metal sheets on the ground to keep paint off the concrete, I guess.
Oh, okay.
But when you were scraping them, they would start to peel up, and then the carts would get stuck in beams. I had one time, the wheel got stuck on the corner of one of them, and the beam tried to slide off. And it was one of those where it's like, all right, catch it, call somebody over, and they'll push it back on. And
Right.
you know. In Minecraft.
Yeah, we don't catch beams. We're told not to catch beams.
Yeah. What was I saying? Oh, yeah, we had these metal plates, and so I was like, why don't we just take these out and then just put one over this crack here where it keeps getting stuck, and now the carts can go in and out just fine. That kind of stuff. I spent that first year doing stuff like that.
Right.
Coming up with what's the fastest way to paint these beams? What's the best point to switch over to the underside of it? At what point can you switch from the do you have to switch from the pry bar to use the crane? You know, where's the levels there?
Right.
All that kind of stuff. How much paint can we store inside? That kind of stuff. And then I got to the point to where I had done all of that, and now it was like, there's no more invention to be had here. We just need somebody to do it. Come in every day, paint for 10 hours, and that's it.
Right.
And that was about a year in. I had about 8 months after that I was the primary painter. And I came about this close to quitting almost every single day. I was miserable.
By about 3 or 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
You're like, I think I'm done.
Yeah, I was miserable. Because there was no more wonder and invention to be had. I had fixed it. That's why they call me the Dragon Slayer at work, because the paint booth was the dragon, and I slew it, right? I came in there and I fixed it.
Right.
And then, well, now what?
Right.
Now I just
Now what
paint
do I
every
do?
day for the next 20 years. And, you know, now I'm miserable because I can't use my geniuses. I'm only using my frustrations.
Right.
And then after that, after 3 or 4 months of that, I was really struggling. It was my second summer there. I was really struggling. I was falling behind. I was always just pissed off. And we
Doesn't
took the
help it's
working
summertime.
genius. Yeah, it didn't help that it was summertime. Yeah, and you got the respirators filling up with sweat.
Right.
Yeah. Then we took the working genius, and they looked at it, and they're like, "Oh, no wonder he's miserable there. He's wonder invention, hates tenacity. We have him doing a tenacity job
Right.
with no room for wonder and invention."
Were you voicing your frustrations?
I was talking to Max about it a lot, and Thomas a little bit, where I was just like, yeah, and they kept being like, "We're looking for a new painter. We'll move you to something else. You know, just stick with it another couple months." But, you know, when you're doing something that you hate doing every
Couple
day,
months can
a
be a
couple
long
months is
time.
a long time. But, but yeah, I love Steel Tech, and that's why I stuck it out. And also the grace of God. That's why I stuck it out, because I was ready to quit so many times.
Right.
Nathan had to talk me out of it a couple times.
Really? You were
Yeah.
that close?
Yeah.
Like you were telling Nate, hey, I think I'm done.
Yeah.
Because you worked, well, at the time was Nate in loading?
Nate was loading. Max was loading lead.
Okay.
So I was working with Nate and Max.
Okay.
And they would both be like, "I know this sucks, but you can do it. You're good at this.
Now, I've
You
seen
can stick
you,
with it."
I've seen you in the paint booth a handful of times,
Yeah.
covering or, someone's out or whatnot.
Yeah.
When you have to cover the paint booth, is it like PTSD going in there, putting that respirator on?
When I have to cover the paint booth, it's like you play video games, right? Mm-hmm. Do you ever play these RPGs where you get to these really high levels and then you go back and to the starting area and you just like stomp through all the enemies?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's how I try to look at it.
Right.
It's not quite like that. It's more like, "Oh, you again. I thought I killed you." You know,
I've killed you before.
But it's one of those where it's like, I know how to do it really well, and I know that it's not forever. You know, if they said, "Hey, we're moving Alvaro to do whatever, you're going to be our primary painter,"
2
I would
weeks.
probably say,
Turn in your
yeah, I would probably say, I'll give you like a month to
Right.
find somebody else. I'll do it because I love Steel Tech. I love the people there, but I hate this.
Right.
I'm not doing this again. Yeah.
Hate that paint booth. The paint
Yeah.
booth it's like that. It just,
It's probably the worst job at the shop.
why though? Is it because is it really hot in there? I mean, I've been in there before, but
It's
I'm
hot
I'm
in
never
there.
in there for like a long period
Okay.
of time.
It's hot in there in the summer. You can't have fans because it'll mess up the paint job.
Right.
If you're smart, you'll wear
Long sleeve.
long sleeves to keep it off of your skin. You've got the respirator, so you can't breathe very well. And in the summer, it fills up with sweat. So now you're breathing in your sweat. The floors are sticky with the paint. So your feet stick to it, and it builds up on your shoes until you're walking like this. Yeah, it's the only job in the shop where you can't walk, breathe, or exist without needing PPE.
Right.
Is a good way of looking at it.
That you talking about the boots. I don't know if this is wonder or invention, but I think I'm tapping into it. Something we used to do when we would walk into like a completely done home, and realtors still do this. They'll have booties that you put on your feet. That way, you obviously came from outside. You probably got dirt or something on your shoes. You don't want to track dirt through the house.
Yeah.
Why not have like a daily kind of booty thing for your boot that you put on, keeps the paint off of your boot, and then at the end of the day you take it off and throw it away?
I think we've looked at that before. The difficulty with that would be finding ones that would work with our steel toe boots, because our boots are bigger than most shoes.
I mean, it could be as simple as just like a heavy duty bag.
Yeah.
Like it wouldn't have to
Could be
be like
something like
house version where, you know, you're just wearing them on wood floors and tile and stuff. Something a little more heavy duty.
Yeah. I know we've tried something similar with the sleeves. They have like disposable sleeves for like meat processing. We've tried that before. Instead of the long sleeves, have the disposable sleeves, and just at the end of the day, throw it away. You
Right.
know? Or go to lunch, throw it away. I don't see why something like that for boots couldn't work. But
Yeah,
it might make it difficult to walk around if it's like
really
slippery
loose on you
material
or slippery.
really
Yeah,
loose.
I feel like something. I don't know. I feel like there could be something there. Or maybe there's a product we don't know about, but yeah, because to me, if I started like having super uneven boots, you know, that would just piss me off.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can like easily scrape it off or what, but
I mean, not super easily, but you can do it.
Yeah.
And you have to if you're in the paint booth for very long.
right.
Yeah. And then there's also physically tough because you're pulling those beams in and out all day.
Yeah.
So it's like you can't. It's the definition of a hostile environment. The ground is fighting you, the air is fighting you, the material is fighting you.
Right.
You've got to manage the paint hose because it'll get caught on stuff, so that's fighting you. It's like everything in there is fighting you. That's why the comparison I would always use is it's like a dragon.
Right.
You know, you've got the claws, fire breath, wings. Now here's the tail
tail.
coming around.
Right.
I used that analogy one time when we had a company lunch, and they chose people from the shop to talk about like the stresses and pressures of each position. And I used that analogy for the paint booth. That's what I was talking about. And then that's when they started calling me Dragon Slayer.
That's funny. I didn't know why they called you that before. Now I know.
Yeah, it's because I'm a honking great nerd that can only relate to things in fantasy and
Video games
sci-fi.
term.
And, yep.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I don't know. I
it's
feel like there's something there. Because that would piss me off.
yeah. But well, I will say there is a reason that they went through so many painters before I started there.
Mm-hmm.
Since then, it's been better. We've had 2 painters since then, and one of them lasted a year almost exactly, and then moved away for other reasons. He had like family stuff going on. And then the other one is Alvaro, who's still there,
Right.
and he's been there a little over a year now. So
Has he been there that long?
yeah. So we've had 3 painters in a row that have lasted at least a year.
We technically we did hire a 4th, but it only lasted like a week.
Oh yeah.
Remember him?
yeah, I
Yeah.
forgot about that.
About a week, and he was like, "Yeah, I think I'm gonna go back to school."
Yeah.
This ain't for me.
Yeah, I don't blame him.
Yeah, it seems like it'd be pretty tough. I remember Mike did it for like a month or 2, and it messed his feet up.
Oh yeah,
Because he was walking so uneven.
Yeah, and when you're not pulling beams in and out or painting beams, you have to scrape the floor, which is a lot better now because we've got a better machine.
Yeah,
that
better scraper.
has all those teeth and stuff.
Yeah.
But the one before, you had to kind of like push on it with your knees and like it was vibrating like crazy.
More scrape the floor versus just letting it kind of.
The one
scrub it
before
off.
that was even worse. That's what we had when I started there was an air chisel, and the blade was about that wide.
Oh my gosh.
And that's what we had for the whole floor.
The whole floor. I let it go like 6 months before I'd scrape it.
Yeah.
That's
That's when we
terrible.
were painting in that more narrow space too. So I took all that stuff out, took those sheets out, and then we were like, this air chisel's not gonna cut it.
Right, there's
You know, we
way
need
too much
something
floor
else.
in here.
Yeah. Then we got that other scraper, and it worked pretty well, but it was pretty rough. Mm-hmm. It's kind of a slog to get the floor scraped. So,
Right.
yeah, the new one's pretty nice. You can do the whole floor in like 30 minutes.
That's
And
not
it's-
bad. You don't have to be pushing on it the whole time.
Yeah, you don't have to be pushing down on it, and yeah. Yeah, Alvaro will talk about it. He's like, man, this sucks. And I'm like, it does, but also, you sweet summer child.
You have
You
no
have
idea.
Yeah.
That is really common. Like when you come to a place that's, been up and running for a while, and you talk to people who were there before you,
Yeah.
and they're like, "Oh, dude, you should have been here, a year ago, or 3 years ago, or 10 years
Yeah.
ago." And it's like, "Wow, I'm glad I'm here now." Versus
That's
back
how
then.
Thomas talks to me about the paint booth, because I came in and they had built the new paint booth, and they'd been using it for like a year. Before that, it was just kind of like you had this big curtain and you would kind of pull it through at an angle and then pull the curtain back and paint it, and you could do like one beam.
Wait,
And
where was it before? Where was the curtain?
you know where the kind of the angle is now? It was there.
Oh my. Yeah, the room was a big upgrade from the curtain.
Yeah. So I would come to Thomas and be like, "Man, this sucks," and he'd be like, "Oh, you sweet summer child, you have no idea."
You have no idea. What about the paint fumes?
They had a fan in there that would suck it out.
Mm.
It wasn't nearly as big as the
Wait,
one
is it
now.
that little bitty fan that's by the Geeka?
Mm-hmm.
I've always wondered what. I've been over there a few times. I'm like, what the hell is that fan doing in the wall
Yeah,
right there?
that used to be the paint booth.
Wow. I'm learning something. And the loading bay's new too, right?
Yeah.
Where were they load before?
They were loading in what is now the saw area.
Where was the saw area?
I think it was where the bar line is now.
Oh, there was no bar line. That's right. They were doing everything by hand.
Yeah.
Wow.
They're cutting everything by hand.
We got it made.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard people tell, that they used to use the Geeka. That's how you pronounce it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They would use it to cut and punch the.
Yeah, cut and punch holes all manually, or foot press every single thing. And I'm thinking, bro, there's no wonder you guys celebrated like 20,000 pounds a week. I mean, this would take so long to do.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're doing that stuff in a day,
Yeah.
Like actually, we want more like 25,000 a day, but
Yeah.
wow. Yeah, we've made a lot of improvements. I wonder what the seam molder and everything's how that's all gonna play out.
Yeah. Hopefully it'll be a pretty good improvement.
The Plas guys don't like it.
Yeah.
They're like,
The
there's no
yard guys
room on
don't
the
like
floor.
it either.
Oh, they don't like it either?
Yeah. I say the yard guy. It's me and then.
Yeah. Why, because
But-
you can't come into that door?
Yeah. Yeah, and also we're like halfway implemented on that system, and then we had to stop to pick up production again. So we're kind of in between systems right now. I think it's part of why it's the people down and working in that area are like not a big fan of this.
Mm-hmm.
Once it's fully put together, it'll be better.
Be a little smoother.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I did mention something. They were talking about not having floor space. And it would be a costly deal because you would need some heavy duty shelving. But I was like, we should almost, instead of spreading it out on the surface area, you should like start going up. Because there's, until the ceiling, unlimited space to go up. But I was like, you'd have to have shelves, like racks, that would slide out so you could set the material on it and then slide it back in.
Yeah.
And they'd have to be heavy duty to handle, some of those stacks of webs.
Yeah.
But I'm like, well, you have to figure something out because once that seam welder's in there, there ain't going to be a whole lot of room to be stacking stuff anymore.
Yeah.
But that's all I could think of. And that might be like an unrealistic thing because, how are you going to build those shelves?
Yeah.
But
I think what we need is a new shop.
I fully support that.
They've been talking about it for a while, but it's
Years I've heard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Since before I've been there, they've been talking about it. But
Right.
it's not the easiest thing to get done. Because you have to find time to build the building, put up the building, stop production, move all the machines over.
Right. That's where my mind always goes is like, how do you find the time? Because that's
like a month.
That's what I'm thinking. That's a month-long thing. You're talking massive equipment that you've got to somehow get on a trailer. A lot of it you got to like unbolt from the ground.
Yeah, and take apart, move it over there, set it up exactly right, put it back together.
Like Nate was telling me, the beam welder, he was like, you could maybe reuse some of this stuff, but a lot of this is like custom made for the floor.
Yeah.
Like they had to level it on the floor. So like this, little beam might be half an inch longer than this one. So if you go take it to somewhere else, it might be all wavy.
Yeah.
So I was like, wow, it would be a massive undertaking to move the equipment, the material. I can't imagine it.
Yeah.
To me, it'd be a month-long thing. Which I guess we would just rely on CUSA for a month.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It'd have to be in one of the. We would have to have enough saved up that we could pay everybody to do that for a month, and then wait till we hit a downtime where we're running projects, and our project would just be make the new building.
Right, make the building. Plus, I was also told that if we did that, there would be like 2 Franklins, which means you'd have to get another Franklin. We'd get that pull-through beam welder, so you'd have to buy a different beam welder, different than the one we have now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a huge, huge cost.
Yeah.
A number that I'm sure is scary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. In the meantime, we're just trying to figure out the best way to do things with our rickety old building and our rickety old machines. And
Yep.
yeah.
At least we're not using the Geeka to punch holes.
Yeah.
We've got
better than it
that.
could be.
Yeah, exactly.
We're not there yet, but we're well on our way.
Yeah, we're working on it. We're working on it.
But yeah, so they introduced the Working Genius when I was in the paint booth. And that was one of the first, like, obvious applications was, oh, Timothy doesn't need to be in the paint booth anymore.
Right.
Let's find somebody else to do the paint booth. And we've got a different spot for him.
What did they do? They hired someone.
Yeah, they hired someone. And I don't think... Did you ever meet Ozzy?
Mm-mm.
Okay. Yeah, I think he left before you started. But, yeah, they hired Ozzy to run the paint booth. And they moved me to finalizing trailers and expediting the paint and loading and QC. And that was the same situation when I got put in the paint booth, where they were like, these trailers need finalized. We don't know what that means at this point because we've had several different people try and do it, and it's just nasty. You know, it's just all over the place. We don't know what we're doing. You fix the paint booth, go fix this.
Right.
And yeah, that first year of me doing it, I was like, I love this. You know, it's a whole different thing. I'm learning a whole new system. I'm making the system because there really wasn't one before.
Right.
Finding the best way to do things. And that's kind of still where I'm at. I'm still doing some of that. I haven't exhausted the wonder and invention there yet. So I did that for about a year. And then Pawpaw left. And they were like, we need somebody to run the yard. Timothy, do you want to do that? The yard. Pawpaw did a pretty good job of running the yard. But they were trying to figure out, they're like, we need to figure out if there are better ways to do this. Can you go out and do that? It wasn't quite the same thing where it's like finalizing was an absolute mess.
Right.
And several people had tried to tackle it, and they were like, this is terrible. I hate this. Like, Max was one that they gave that to Max, and Max was looking at it, and he's like, I hate this. I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
Let's put Timothy on this. He would love this. I think Nathan did it for a little while, too, and he was also one of those where he's like, I don't really like this, you know.
Did he like loading?
I think so.
I would think I would hate that.
Yeah. It's, I think Caleb is our loader right now, and he's discernment enablement. I think that's a pretty good pairing for loading. Because the discernment is very much like me or Andrew will give him, on our big loads, we'll give him a basic load plan. But oftentimes that won't work. Because once you get into it and there's all the little clips and everything, and, you know, if you're a 1/4 inch this way, it might not work. And
Yeah.
so he's very good at looking at that and being like, this is generally what we need to do. I'm going to finagle it and figure out the best way. So he gets to use his discernment a lot of like, if I put this piece here, then I'll save an extra 3 inches off the top of this trailer, you know?
Right.
And then enablement of like jumping back and forth on the trailers, not being married to, I'm going to stick with this trailer until it's done. Being like, what the shop actually needs is for me to stop this one halfway through, jump over to this one, and work on that instead.
To
So
like
that we've
help
got
everyone
carts
get
and
carts.
space,
Yeah.
yeah.
See, with TE, I want to be told how to load it.
Yeah.
And if there's no one over there telling me how to load it, I'm just gonna be like,
Yeah, we had a loader for a little while that was WT. I think he was a WT. He was definitely Tenacity. He hated it. He
Yeah.
hated loading.
Yeah,
And there were several times where that I was in the paint booth at the time. He was loading, and Nathan was finalizing. And I would go out there and be like, we have got to figure out what we're doing here. And he would literally say, just tell me what to do, and I'll do it. I don't want to make the decisions.
Right.
I don't want to come up with the best way to do this.
Mm-hmm.
I hate that. You just tell me what to do, and I'll do it.
Right.
And that felt kind of weird without this language, because I'm here, I'm like, I'm 19. He was like 33, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, you want me to tell you what to do?
Right.
I'm
just a kid.
I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. And he's like,
Right.
yeah, but you're better at this, coming up with the way of doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So you do that, and just tell me what to do, and I'll do it. So,
Right.
yeah.
So like the paint booth with tenacity, I feel like it would almost never be fulfilled. Like, I guess if you got to the point where you didn't have any beams and you could scrape the floor, you'd be like, oh, I'm caught up.
Yeah.
But other than that, there's no finish line.
Mm-hmm.
Like, at least when I look at it as far as like on the beam welder or fitting, once I finish a job, that job typically uses, like the same, like the whole job gets 8 buys, or, they're pretty similar. And then when you get to a new job, it's like, okay, these beams are different.
Yeah.
Well, if I was painting, it'd be like, it doesn't matter whether this beam looks different. I'm just painting it.
Yeah.
So there would never be a fulfillment of like, making it to the finish line.
I think the fulfillment there would be because the paint booth has very clear instructions of this is what is expected. And it is, the floor is always scraped.
Mm-hmm.
There are no beams in front of you. They're all painted. And they're painted well. And the filters are changed. The pumps are running. Here's a list of things that we need to maintain, as opposed to here's a list of things we need to get done.
Mm-hmm.
So you would check it off in that way of like, I changed the filters this week. I
Right.
scraped the floor today. There's no beams waiting to be painted.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of stuff.
Right.
And you could also go through it looking at the weekly vision. Be like, I'm 15 beams into this 30 beam job.
Right. It definitely is how you look at it. Because, I could look at it that way too. But for some reason, when I just put myself in the paint booth, like envisioning it, I'd be like, I hate this. This sucks.
Yeah. Well, the paint booth sucks.
It sucks.
There's no if, and, or but there. Nobody that has worked in the paint booth for very long will tell you.
I mean, have we ever looked for someone who used to like paint homes and stuff, where they like to paint?
I think so.
That's like your ideal person.
Yeah.
Someone who's just like, yeah, I like to paint shit.
Yeah.
Well, get in there. We got unlimited beams for you.
Yep. Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to find somebody that wants to stay there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, isn't Avaro wanting to weld?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's wanting to switch to something else.
Mhm.
So
Kind of the same thing. No wonder an invention anymore.
I think so.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a very heavy tenacity job, and tenacity is his frustration as well. So it's a very similar situation to what I had, where
Yeah.
he's kind of like at the point where he's like, all they need is somebody to just come in and do the job every day.
Right.
That's not me. I'll do it until we find someone else, but once we find someone else, I'm not going back to this.
I feel like that's why it's a hard position, because you say it's a heavy T job, which it does sound like, but as someone with T, it sounds like nothing I'd want to do.
Yeah.
Like, it takes tenacity to do it, but no one with tenacity would want to do it.
It's one of those jobs where when you watch somebody do it for a little bit, it's hard to imagine anybody loving that job.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure there's somebody that would. There's people that love, what's that thing where you're standing on top of like a cinder block wall, and you're like pouring concrete down on the inside, and there's jobs like that where it's like, or you have to like hang upside down. Have you seen the video of the guy cleaning the St. Louis Arch?
Mm-mm.
Where he's got suction cups and he has to like go up the underside of it and like wipe it off and
Oh
stuff.
my gosh.
It's the kind of thing where it's like, I can't imagine anybody ever loving that, but there are people that do.
There's someone out there that does.
There's somebody out there that loves that job.
Mm-hmm. It's just a matter of finding them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Well, does that pretty much cover the working genius?
Yeah. I mean, that's the gist of it.
Mm-hmm.
There's always more that we could talk about, but
Is there anything else you got on the top of your mind?
I have one more thing that I was kind of wanting to talk about.
Let's talk about it.
So when you're working in each area, this is true for your geniuses, but also for if you're working in your frustrations. There are certain things that when you're working in that area you crave and that you're crushed by, right? That's kind of what we were talking about earlier with like invention craves freedom and they're crushed by restraint.
Yeah.
There's stuff like that for each area. And I think when you're working in that area, if it's your frustration, you have much less patience for the things that crush you when you're working there. Mm-hmm. So for Wonder, what they crave is consideration. When they ask a question, they want people to consider it. And they're crushed by people going, who cares? You know?
Right.
If they're like, hey, what do you think about this? Who cares? You know?
Right.
So if it's, you were saying you think Wonder might be one of your frustrations. So if you started asking questions, if you were like, I really think there's something here, there's some potential that's not being met, I'm going to ask a question about it. And you asked, and then Thomas was like, who cares? That's a stupid question. That would probably crush you, right? Mm-hmm. You would be like, well, fine, I'm never asking a question
right,
again.
Yeah, like, okay,
you know?
No more ideas for me.
Whereas for me, I'd be like, yeah, well, maybe that is a stupid question. I'll ask a different one, or, I'll keep asking it until somebody considers what I'm asking. Mm-hmm. Whereas opposed to if you ask that question and Thomas was like, that's a very good question. Let's think about that. Mm-hmm. Let's work through that. That's a whole different thing. And then you would feel validated in asking that question.
Right.
That's what they crave and what they're crushed by. With invention, it's freedom. They crave freedom. Freedom to do things the way they want to do them, to explore their ideas. And they're crushed by constraint. So if somebody came up to me, I'll keep using Thomas as an example because he's our boss. Love you, Thomas. If he came up to me and he was like, I need you to find a better way to do this. I don't care how you do it. Just find a better way to do it. I would be like, oh, baby. Mm-hmm. Like when he put me in the yard and he was like, this is what needs done. Find the best way to do it. As long as you uphold our values, I don't care.
Right.
Yeah. Do it your way.
Right.
I was like, oh, yes. I love that. If he came to me and he was like, I need you to figure out a better way to do this. But you can't do it this way. And it can't be like that. And it has to include this. Then I would be like, do you want me to do it?
Right,
Are you going to let me do it or are you just going to tell me what to do?
Right.
Because it's like you're confining my invention. And it's like, well, if you clearly have an idea of what you want done, why are you asking me for ideas?
Right, exactly. That would be more for someone with TE, right? Just tell them how you want it done.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so if invention is one of your frustrations, you would have a lot less patience for that, right? If they were like, come up with a new idea and you're starting to think and they're like, oh, but don't include this and don't do it this way. And they start cutting off those avenues pretty quickly. You'd be like, well, just tell me what to do.
You mean if invention was your genius?
If it's your genius, you wouldn't like it either, but you would have more patience for it.
Oh, okay.
You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. I could put up with it more because I have a deeper well to pull from, right? Whereas if it was my frustration, it would be like one or two times and I'd be crushed. And I'd be like, I don't want to do this anymore.
Right. Okay.
With discernment, what they crave is trust. Because they've got a good gut. They know what they're doing. Even if it's something they have no experience with, their gut is usually right.
So they want people to trust them.
They want people to trust them. Mm-hmm. What they're crushed by is people saying, prove it. Because they're like, I can't prove it.
Right. They want to see stats.
I know this is right, but I can't prove it. So they're like, well, you can go ahead and try. And when it doesn't work, there's your proof. Or you could just trust me and know that I'm right about this, or that
Yeah.
I'm probably right about this.
Right.
And so if that's your genius, you have more patience for that. Of people being like, well, prove it. And they're like, well, no, I'm right. Just trust me, you know?
Right.
Whereas if somebody with discernment frustration is like, my gut is telling me this is not the right way to do it. I don't know what it is. Something's telling me we can't do it this way. And everyone's like, prove it. We're like, whatever, I'm done. You know,
I'm done. I'm over this.
you don't trust me. That's fine. I offered my input. I'm done.
Yeah.
You know, with galvanizing, it's like a response or reaction. So they want people to respond to their galvanizing, and they're crushed by apathy.
They want to see people get excited and
Yes, but they would rather you be angry about it than apathetic about it. So if they're galvanizing, they're like, "Come on, who's with me?" You know, they either want to, "Yeah, I'm with you," or a, "No, what the hell is wrong with you?" You know, because
Really?
they can work with that.
they would rather one
Yeah.
or the other, but not in the middle.
What they're crushed by is like, "Yeah, I guess.
Mm,
Guess we can do that.
right.
Whatever you want." You
So
know,
even,
that kind of
even
thing.
anger and like going against them still gets them
Yeah.
fired up.
Yeah, because if you're going against them, at least they know you're passionate about it. You care about this. They can work with that,
Right.
as opposed to,
You just don't care.
yeah, whatever you say.
That's
You know,
what defeats them.
yeah, yeah.
That's
So
interesting.
the example that they give on the podcast, because one of the guys is a galvanizer. He talks about if he had to give a speech in the dark and he turned the lights on, he would rather turn the lights on to everybody frowning and scowling at him than turn the lights on to everyone asleep. You know?
Wow. It's pretty extreme.
Yeah. Because then he would know, okay, we're not quite ready to move forward with this. Let's keep working on it. Let's
Yeah.
keep figuring it out.
Yeah, that makes sense then. So they just don't want people to not care because that just is like, I'm up here for nothing.
Yeah. Galvanizing is one of my frustrations. And so sometimes I talk in like our morning meetings, and that's really hard because everybody's still waking up. And so it's very much, I'll make my point and I'll be looking around and everyone's just kind of like,
Like they
you know,
didn't hear you.
and I'll be like, so then I'll keep going because I'm trying to get to the point. I'm like, I didn't get it across. I got to
Right.
keep going, you know. And then by the end of it, I'm like, oh, you know,
Yeah, that's over.
yeah. As opposed to like if something like this, where I'm kind of galvanizing you around this idea, but you're like, oh yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, let's keep talking about that.
Right.
That's you using your enablement to respond to my galvanizing, which makes it much easier because
Right.
I'm getting a response.
So even in a conversation, you can find that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. See, when I was introduced to this, it was the first time I'd ever heard of it or anything. And then I've covered it a little, but not in the detail and the depth you have. Like, you can definitely tell you know a ton about this.
I
'Cause
love this stuff.
I'm sitting here looking at it, like, not really the definitions anymore, but like each letter and the word and everything. And even I'm still like, okay, discernment. And you just like got it.
Yeah, I've listened to almost every episode of the podcast, some of them multiple times.
Yeah.
I love personality stuff. I'm very hesitant to adopt new personality types and tests and stuff. But once I do, I'm like full in. I got to learn everything about this. And
Wait, what about people's signs and stuff? What do you
no,
think?
that's
No.
no, that's
Instantly.
that is
Make
not
believe.
only unhelpful, but it is demonically inspired.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah,
I don't know hardly
Provably.
anything. I don't know anything about them, but
yeah, it's provably bad for you to go with your horoscope and your star sign.
yeah, I know people be like, I'm a Leo, and I'm like, I don't even know what the hell that means. I don't know what month that's
my
for.
favorite is when people say I'm a Capri Sun,
Because isn't one of those a thing?
like Capricorn. or
Oh,
something
that's
like
what it
that.
is. Yeah.
I'm a Capri Sun. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know nothing about it, but once you said personality test, I'm like, wonder what he thinks about those.
No, I like this one, and I like the Jungian psychology or Myers-Briggs stuff. I'm kind of on the fence with like Enneagram. That's another popular one
I
where
don't know that one.
it's more of like human nurture is kind of more what it looks at. But I'm kind of on the fence about it because its origins are kind of not very well documented. So it's one of those where I'm like still discerning that one.
Right.
But and then there's like DISC and stuff. I've looked into that a little bit, but the two main ones that caught my interest were Working Genius and Myers-Briggs.
Yeah, I don't even think I've heard of the other ones.
Yeah.
What were we talking about?
We were talking about what they crave and what they're
Oh,
crushed
yeah,
by.
I got a sidetrack.
We've got two left.
Okay.
So enablement. This is yours. They crave appreciation, not necessarily recognition. They don't want to be like, here's a medal. They just want to be like, thank you for doing this.
Okay.
Thank you for doing that.
That is me
I appreciate you.
to a T.
Yeah.
So, a big thing, two things on why like I crave leadership and like being a leader. And I feel like these things go hand in hand. I have terrible like stage fright or public speaking.
Yeah.
I absolutely hate it. I do not want to get up in front of people, even like all the people we work with. If I had to get up, like stand up and go to the front and turn and look at everybody and start going over something on the board, I mean, my voice would get shaky. I would start breathing rapidly. My heartbeat would go up. I'd sound like a total idiot. I'm terrified of it.
Yeah.
And it's a bad trait because it's one of those things I have no desire for growth and continuous improvement in.
Yeah.
Because people just don't understand, like, when someone's that scared of something, they don't want to do it. Like, no matter what you tell me, like, oh, it's going to help you.
Yeah.
It's going to lead to this, lead to that. Dude, I don't care. I am terrified of it. So it's not even like, I'm not even hearing you.
It's not a, this is something I'm uncomfortable with. This is a phobia.
Yes, it's a phobia.
Medically and psychologically afraid of this thing that I shouldn't be afraid of.
Right. Yes, that's really how I look at it. So, a lot of people are just like, well, you just need to practice it. And I'm thinking, bro, you don't understand. I know some people are like, yeah, I'm a little nervous to do it. Bro, that ain't me. I'm this nervous to do it. I hate it. But because of that, I don't want or need any recognition.
Yeah.
So, like, when I was building homes, it was never like I built the home.
Yeah.
I would be proud, and I had a part in it, an important part, but it was like, nope, they built it. They're the dudes out there sweating, working their butts off, look at them.
Yeah.
And so when it comes to like leadership type stuff, I feel like that's a strength I have, and also a weakness of not wanting to talk in front of people, but a strength as far as, dude, you don't need to point the camera at me. You don't need to put a microphone in front of my face. You don't need to ask me to give a speech. They can literally have 100% of the credit.
Yeah.
If I get a couple people that tell me great job, that's like the world to me. Actually, that's one of my love languages is words of affirmation. That's my number one. So like just one or two, like one person, if they're like, dude, you did a good job. I'd just be like, that's all I needed. And honestly, I could tell myself that. I'd be like, hey, that was a win. And I could also tell myself, damn, that was a loss.
Yeah.
It's like I could do both. But if I get, just one person to say good job, that is all I need. Stick the camera in someone else's face, ask them to give the speech. I don't need any of that.
Yeah. That is to a T how enablers or how working in enablement works. They don't necessarily, in fact, oftentimes they are really uncomfortable with recognition or like being honored for something.
Right.
They don't want that. What they want is appreciation. They want somebody that they care about or that they affected personally to say, hey, thank you for doing that.
And I feel like some people might think, well, that's like one and the same. Like, what more appreciation could I show you than, naming a stadium after you and asking you to give us, a short speech?
Yeah.
I'd be like, no, bro, that's not me at all. I can tell you as someone with E, personally, I wouldn't like that. I'm like, no, you could just give me a pat on the back and name the stadium after that guy. Like, I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't need it.
And this is kind of what I was talking about earlier too, with this is not just necessarily people with the genius of it. This is when you're working in this area.
Right.
So imagine you have, actually, here's a very good story. They told this on their podcast. Almost every single person on the podcast has ET as their frustrations.
Really?
Which is hilarious.
And we're full of them.
Yeah. But one of the guys was telling I think it was actually Patrick Lencioni was telling the story about one of these other guys. Enablement was his frustration. But he was filling in a role where he needed to do a lot of enablement. It was like his personal assistant while he was going and giving talks.
Mm-hmm.
And he was about to go up on stage, and he was like, man, my lips are really dry. I need some. And he looked down, and there was some chapstick that this guy that has E as his frustration had set there for him.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, that is exactly what I need. That probably killed him to just think of doing that, you know?
Right.
And so after the talk or whatever, he went and he said, hey, I know that you hate this, that you hate having to anticipate my needs and stuff, and that you're not good at it. It burns you out. Thank you so much. This chapstick shows me that you care about me, and I know how hard that was for you. Thank you so much.
Right.
Whereas if he had said nothing, that guy would have been crushed.
Right.
Because it's already hard for him. He already is way out of his comfort zone, and then he's not getting appreciated for it.
Right.
You know, whereas if like somebody that loves enablement had done that and they didn't say anything, they would just be like, "Oh, well, that's fine." You know.
Okay.
I would love appreciation, but it's okay that he didn't. It was just a little thing, you know.
It makes more sense to me because earlier when we were talking about that part of it, and I said, "Don't you mean your genius?"
Yeah.
I couldn't wrap my mind around
What I was trying to say.
yeah, how you were trying to describe that. But with the enablement thing, it does makes sense how you just described that.
You have more patience for it if you have it as your genius.
Okay,
Because
it
it comes naturally.
It makes sense now.
You have that deep well of enablement to draw from, as opposed to somebody that's drawing from a little tiny teacup.
Right.
You know, they've got this much enablement.
It's like a flame. Like they have a little bitty flame. They just need a little gas poured on
Yeah.
it for it to keep going. Versus someone who's got a bonfire. It's like,
Yeah.
you put a little water on it, it's not going to do anything.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's a very good analogy.
Wow.
If you've got a match,
I got it now.
If you got a match and you pour like a tablespoon of water on there, it'll put it out.
Right.
If you pour a tablespoon of water on, you know, a burning building, it's not
Not
going to
gonna
do
do nothing.
anything.
Right.
You know.
Okay, while we were having that conversation, I'm like, I'm not grasping this.
Yeah.
I was trying to, but yeah, now that makes sense.
But yeah, it's when you're working in that area, when you're using that, because everyone uses all six. When you are using that, this is what you would crave, this is what you're crushed by.
Okay, so like you said, like if I was to ask a question, because wonder's, I think, a frustration of mine.
Yeah, if you asked
And
me
they
a
shot it
question, you're like,
down.
hey, what if do you think anyone could have 3 geniuses and 3 frustrations instead of, you know, and I was just like, that's a stupid question. Why would you ask that?
Right.
You know, what are you talking about?
Right.
I know this system like the back of my hand, and you're trying to, you know,
Right.
if I came back like that, you would be like,
That makes more
sorry.
sense now.
You know, yeah. As opposed to if I was like, yeah, that's a really good question. Let's talk about that. Let's think about that. You know, having that consideration. You know.
Okay, that makes so much more sense now. It
Yeah.
took all the way to E for me to understand it, and twice, but
Yeah, I probably
Okay.
could have explained that better.
no, you did. I just wasn't grasping it. That does make sense though.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the last one, I figured if this is the easiest one to kind of describe how that would work. Tenacity. What they crave is clarity and permission. They want you to say, here are the clear expectations. I expect this, this, and this done in these ways by this time. Now go do it. You know, because if they say that, and then they're like, oh, but don't start yet. You know, oh, but we got to wait on this thing. Oh, but I'm not sure. We're still working out these details. That kind of thing. They're just like, oh, just let me go.
Right.
Just let me do it. You know?
Right. I think that's been frustrating a lot of the guys at the shop with the job we're doing this week comes over like in the middle of the week.
Yeah, and we'll start it, and then, oh, it got sent back to data.
Exactly.
Like, oh, yeah. Yeah.
Or we'll put something on it, then it's like, oh no, we made a change, now we got to take that off, and yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And what they're crushed by is ambiguity. So if I'm ambiguous with something, if I'm like, yeah, we need this done, but it doesn't really matter when you get to it. It's just whenever you do it, and you know, you can do it this way if you want, or you could do it a different way. You know, like like I was talking about with Ampelia running the yard. If Thomas came out there and said, "This is kind of what we're expecting, but figure it out," you know, we don't really care how the specifics of how you do it. You know, that would crush him because he would be like, I don't know what to do.
Right.
You know,
I want you to
I want
me
you
what
to
to
give
do.
me a list of things, and I'll go get those things done. You know, so that's where it's kind of the opposite of invention, where invention wants that freedom,
Right.
tenacity wants that clarity.
Right.
So
That makes total sense now.
yeah, and when I'm working in tenacity, so here's a very good example of how, if it's your frustration, you have much less patience for it. Let's say I finish a trailer, and I finish it exactly how it's specified, and then they come back and say, oh, you didn't do this thing right, and it's something they had never mentioned. I'd be like, well, what the hell? How was I supposed to know that?
Right.
You know, I suppose somebody else would be like, oh, I'll keep that in mind for later, you know, or, oh man, that's a little frustrating. You know, let me work through that. For me, it's like, oh,
That whole trailer
I
for
went
nothing.
through all that work and yeah. Yeah. I went through all that work and this one thing was wrong that I didn't even think about. You should have said something sooner, you know.
Right.
Like I have a lot less patience for that, or a lot less tolerance for that than somebody that would be more tenacious than me. Because
Yeah.
I've got just this tiny little like bottle cap of tenacity
Right.
that I'm using to scoop out the entire lake. You know,
Right.
that's kind of what it looks like. I'm using a spoon to, you
Get
know,
all
dig
the
a
water out.
hole of china. Yeah.
Right. Huh. That's a good way to describe it. It does make sense to me now. I really wasn't grasping it earlier. I was like, I'm trying to understand it, and I was kind of trying to twist it the other way.
Yeah.
But yeah, it makes sense now. I definitely think we need to do the Myers-Briggs. We need to do one on that too,
I would love to do one.
because you're super knowledgeable on that one as well,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That one, I would need a quick lesson in it again, because I remember I went over it with, I think, Max and Zach on the board, and I think Thomas. Like, we were in there talking about it or something, and I started to understand how they were interchanging. Like, if the first was an I, the third was something, or the second was something. I had that down. Like, once I figured it out, I was like, oh, then like this is this, and they're like, yeah, you got it. I have since forgot,
Yeah.
because we haven't talked about that very much. But
Yeah.
that would be
That
a really good one
one-
too.
That's the one that I've really wanted to talk about, but it's complicated. It's a complicated system because it's trying to encapsulate all of these observations about human personality, and human personality is infinitely complex. And so they're trying to encapsulate all these different things, all the different human behavior. And so it gets really complicated to explain.
Right.
But once you understand it, it's super helpful. So
Yeah, I don't fully understand it just yet. Like, I do remember going over mine, and it all checked out, made sense to me, but I would definitely need a refresher in it.
I'll tell you what. Next time that I'm on, we'll do that one. I wanted to do this one first because this is the beauty of this system is there are instant applications.
Right.
It doesn't take very long to wrap your brain around it. Oh, there's 6 different things. I love doing 2 of these. I hate doing 2 of these. You know, immediately you start understanding things.
Yeah.
That one is like, you got to dig at it and dig at it and dig at it. And then you finally get it and you're like, oh, buried treasure, you know?
Yeah.
So I wanted to do this first because it's easier to understand, easier to explain.
I would agree, because I remember going over the other one, the Myers-Briggs, and it was like, there's a little bit more to this one.
Yeah.
It's not so cut and dry.
It's very deep. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of depth there.
Yeah. Yeah, I say that's our next one. That'd be a really good one.
Okay.
All right. Y'all good? Think we got
Yeah,
everything
I'm
covered
all
on this
good.
one? All
Yeah,
right.
we got to wrap this up because I got to pee.
All right. All right, this was a really good one. So, again, this is the Working Genius.
Yep.
Or the widget.
Yep.
I guess the widget is like the tool within
Yeah.
the Working Genius. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, on that note, we'll wrap it up. Guys, thanks for watching and listening. Again, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Spotify. Go subscribe to all of them. Like and share my stuff. And Tim, thank you for coming on.
Yeah. Pleasure as always.
All right. We'll see you guys.
See ya.